Hey everyone, Art Burns here, wishing you well today. And I really am, I do want you to know that I'm very, very grateful that you're here watching these videos and listening to this podcast. I get emails from people all the time who are thanking me for the timeliness of these videos and the help that they get from these videos and podcasts. And I just want you to know that I'm really, really grateful that there's people out there. And I'm so honored to be able to help, to be able to lend some help into what's really, really difficult stuff. Sometimes this thing called life, this grand catastrophe of our life, right, is often really, really challenging. And when we can meet life with the presence, the acceptance, and the compassion that flow from practicing mindfulness and applying mindfulness to our daily, day-to-day activities, whether it's our jobs, our family, our friends, our romance, endeavors, romance adventures, or our parenting. Any of one of those areas that we can apply this sense of moment to moment awareness, right, and the presence, the acceptance, and the compassion that flow from that, it really changes everything. And it did really change everything for me. Like, I'm speaking from a place of experience, especially with parenting. I mean, it changed everything in my life. Once I learned how to practice mindfulness, and I started practicing mindfulness within just a few months of just doing very simple practices to keep myself, paying attention to what is happening as it's happening, and doing so without judgment, right? Again, the ability to be present, the ability to accept things that were happening to me. Not that I don't want to change things in my life, not that I'm not constantly, trying to improve myself. I am, right? But the acceptance of being able to, let go of the idea of like, well, I want it to be this way, and it's not, and that's going to cause me emotional turmoil, right? Like, that's the part of the ability to let that go is what we talk about when we talk about acceptance, right? And then the compassion, right? Because once you let go of these ideas of like, this is how I wanted my life to be, I wanted to live in this kind of house, I wanted to be this kind of person, I wanted to have this kind of family, and so on, so on, so on. Again, not that you can't make changes to create that life for yourself. You can and you should, but to be able to accept where you are without that emotional strain, it actually allows you to make the changes and to take action to create the life that you really want, right? And the life that you want for yourself, the life that you want for your children, the life that you want for your spouse, everyone in your life. And most of all, as I was getting to, once you release all of those kind of attachments to these preconceived expectations and preconceived notions that you had about what things should be like, once you're able to do that, then you can allow compassion on a very deep level to flow. And once you do that, then it just changes, literally changes everything. And so again, once I learned how to do these practices and to apply this sort of attitude or this sort of essence to my life, everything changed, right? I mean, like, I became more effective in the work that I do. I became more attentive and present with my wife and my children. I became more of a present and supportive friend to my friends. And I got in touch with old friends who, it's amazing the kind of things that just happen. And it's amazing how everything is affected so deeply by our constant kind of whirlwinds of thoughts that happen in our mind, right? About this, when we're clinging to these ideas that we have about how we want things to be, but they're not. And again, that whirlwind of attachment to those ideas are what prevents us from taking clear and concise and beneficial action towards the things that we want. So it actually it itself holds us back as much as that's weird to think about, right? So the fact that you're not accepting it, makes it impossible to achieve it, right? But if you can accept where you are, then you can achieve the change that you want. I know that sounds very counterintuitive, but it's true. It's really true, and I can explain it to you, and I can show you how it works. You just have to do some of the practices, right? And so how does all this apply to parenting, right? So specifically, right? Like I talked about yesterday, how a lot of parenting books, or some parenting books anyway, you'll get this kind of sense from them, like, okay, do this, do this, do this, do this, and then your kids will grow up fine or whatever. But what you find most of the time when you're doing those books, when you're following along with those books, you find that, well, my kids don't do that. Like if I do these two steps, these 2 or 3 steps that you just named, my child didn't give me the same, result that this child in this book gave me. The example does not fit what I went through. So the book goes on the shelf, starts gathering dust. You never look at it again. Maybe you give it away to somebody else. Maybe you sell it, whatever. But it doesn't really help, right? So the really effective way to approach parenting improvements, is though, like, that's a weird thing to talk about, right? Because it's not something that, that's the idea itself, right? That parenting, the best kind of parenting you can do, right, often means the least, sort of effort that you're putting into it, right? Like just being able to be present with your children and to build an attachment to them, an attunement on a deep emotional level, right? On a level that is past their behavior, right? Because that's the thing. Most of these parenting books are going to address behavioral concerns, right? Like, so my child acts out. I don't know how to get her to do her homework. I don't know how to get her to be nice to people. I don't know how to get her to eat vegetables. These things, right? Like, those are behaviors, and certain books will try to address that, and they will try to, to give you, step-by-step instructions on how to get your children to do X, right? But the thing is that kids are human beings, right? They're not like this other form of life, right? They're just like us. They're just younger, right? So when you think about you trying to learn something, like if I was to try to convince you to do something, right, would it help to like punish you, or would it help to just put these, endless rewards in front of you? Of course not. What really helps is to inspire you. Right now, of course, children, the inspiration that children find is different from the inspiration that adults find, right? Because they're very young, right? So the inspiration that they're likely to find is when they feel that emotional connection with the most important people who are in their lives. And that is you as a parent, right? That's the key, right? To be present with them, to be, empathically, and compassionately, connected to them. That's the key, right? And that's what mindfulness allows you to do. Again, when you can let go of that whirlwind of feelings of like, oh my gosh, my kid's room is such a mess. She's going to grow up to be a horrible person. Like when you have those kind of thought processes going on in your mind, that's preventing you from connecting to your children, right? And in fact, what happens is, when you react to your children's behavior in that way, right, you get frustrated, you get upset, you get disappointed, you get sad, you get depressed, whatever it is on the vast, scale and spectrum of emotions that you might feel as a result of whatever behaviors your children are giving you every day, right? When you react in those ways, right, your children feel that they're further and further and further and further away from you. In fact, what they feel is that they are, that their behavior is pushing you away to such a point that it's threatening the connection that you have. It's threatening the relationship that you have, right? And that's why most well-behaved children, they're emotionally, they're not really, they're not emotionally intelligent. They're not living an emotionally fulfilling life, right? They're just, they're going through the motions out of a sense of fear, right? Even if it's a reward that you're using to get your children to obey you, right? It's still, they're acting out of a place of fear. Basically, the entire human emotion, right? The entire spectrum of human emotion that you can, everything you can possibly feel, right? There's one main division, okay? We're either acting out of fear, or we're acting out of love. Okay, and it's really that way. All the different emotions, you could boil them down to either a fear-based emotion or a love-based emotion, right? And so when when all the interactions that you have, with your children are coming from emotions of fear, right? Then that's what you're going to get as a result, right? You're going to get a child who fears you, right? But what you want is a child who loves you. right? And that's the key here, folks. That's what we're talking about, right? And when we're able to be present, and we're able to be, and I mean truly present, right? Which means like not thinking about, oh my gosh, the mess in my daughter's room, or the my son's temper tantrums, or the cookies that they insist on eating all the time that I can't get them to stop stealing cookies out of the cabinet, all these things, and the struggle of going to bed at a certain time, and if thinking like, if I don't get my child into bed at 9 o'clock at night, I'm a bad parent, I'm just a bad person, right? Like all those things. If you're having those thoughts, then you're not truly you're present with your child, right? And that's the key, right? And your child can sense that. Your child can sense that you're not present with him or her. And so the idea is that when we can be present, truly present, without all of that, right, where it's just you and me, kid, we're together here, we're attached, it's all good, right? Even if you're a mess, your room is a mess, even if it's a struggle to get you to eat your string beans, all of this doesn't mean that I don't love you, right? That's the message that kids are going to respond the most to. And here's the thing, right? And this is what the truly powerful parenting books and programs and everything else will tell you, right? Which is what my program tells you as well, is that once you build that connection, right? Once your child really knows beyond the shadow of a doubt that you love them no matter what their behavior is, right? Once they feel that emotional connection with you and that emotional support coming from you, guess what happens? The behaviors change, right? The behaviors wind up taking care of themselves, right? I mean, a few years ago when I was just getting into mindfulness, my kids used to fight with each other. My wife and I used to fight with each other. We used to fight with the kids. And it was always kind of bickering and arguing. And when I started to practice mindfulness and I developed the skill and the habits of being present, being able to accept what is, and being compassionate towards the people around me, then what I stopped doing is I just stopped fighting, right? And it just stopped. And once I stopped fighting, one by one, everybody in my household stopped fighting as well. Okay, does that mean that we still don't? Yeah, I mean, my kids still, yes, they'll argue about the remote control and the TV, or who's using what, and what computer and all that kind of stuff. Of course, we have those moments, right? But it's no longer this constant state of just frenzy where you're just like exhausted from it at the end of the day, right? And I thought back then, we'd never have times like we have now. Like I didn't think it was even possible. But that's the point, folks, is that it is possible. And all it requires is for you to be present and compassionate and accepting of what is happening with your child. And once you can do that, and it's very simple to do, okay? Now, it's very simple. It's not necessarily easy, right? Because we have these sort of, preconceived notions of how we think we're supposed to be parenting, right? And of course, this is compounded by, our friends and our parents and our the television shows that we watch and the books that we read and all this stuff. Like we're made to feel as though we're supposed to do certain things. But the fact is that every child is different. Every parent is different. Even within the same family, like my son and my daughter, you can't parent them the same way. They're completely different. Well, you can't apply one set of rules or disciplines to both of them and expect it to fit. But you can parent them in the same way with presence, acceptance, and compassion. And that's what I do. And what this does is this allows you to be curious, right? To approach things with your kids with a curious compassion, so that you're really like just wanting to get in there with them. And once they feel that, again, the behavior issues, they settle themselves. And I can guarantee that, right? Like I literally can guarantee that. And if you're willing to put a little bit of work in, 10 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day tops, for about 30 days, maybe 60 days, right? If you in that range, 30 to 60 days, if you're willing to put 20 minutes a day, or even between 10 and 20 minutes a day for 30 to 60 days, okay? If you're willing to put that time in, I can guarantee you these results. And I mean that. So if you'd like to learn more, if you'd like to talk about this, if you want to know how to get these practices going, what's involved, hit me up with a comment, send me a direct message. I would love to help you out and love to, teach you about this. It's a passion of mine, again, because of how it's changed my life, all right? And I would love to tell you some more stories about myself. All right, have a great day, and thanks for listening. Take care.